everyone, my name is Sari and you are watching my YouTube channel and my knitting podcast videos. This is the 6th episode and probably second to last episode of my Sweater Chronicles miniseries, and if you haven't watched the previous episodes, the Sweater Chronicles is a miniseries I've been making on my YouTube channel where I've been talking about knitwear design and especially designing sweaters. I'm an indie knitwear designer. I'm totally self-taught, so I'm not really calling this a series of tutorials, but rather I'm chronicling how I design knitwear and what are the steps from an idea to become an actual published pattern on Ravelry. So that's the basics of this mini series I've been making. And the first episode I made, I already made it back in the summer, and it was about submitting work for knitwear publications. And after that, the episodes have been about swatching and grading, and after that, basic pattern writing stuff, calculating pattern repeats. And the last episode I made was about how to draw knitting charts. That was more of a tutorial than the previous ones, so I showed you which software I use for drawing charts. And as I told you in the beginning, I'm an indie designer, so I'm totally self-taught. I even taught myself to knit, and everything I have learned is I'm never taking any courses or gone to a designing school, so I've learned everything myself and often made many stupid mistakes on the way, things that I wish somebody had told me earlier. I have fallen many times and picked myself up again and done things the hard way when afterwards I have realized that there would have been so much easier ways to do it, and that's why I started doing this little mini series. So maybe I can pass on some of the information I have stumbled on the way, and if there are some people, newbies, who are aspiring to start designing knitwear, I hope you find this mini series helpful. Like I said, I'm not calling this a tutorial, as I don't think this is the only way to do things. This is just the way I do stuff, and there are probably many other ways to do it, and sometimes maybe even easier ways to do it. I think if I was working for a real publication or a young company, I think they probably have better software and better tools to do stuff, but I'm doing everything from home on my home computer, a lot by hand. And like I've mentioned before on this mini series, I'm like this one woman band, so I do everything myself, from the idea to writing to pattern, to knitting the sample. I often model my own photos for the designs, so I use a self-timer, so I'm both the photographer and the model, and I edit the photos myself. I edit my patterns, I host test knitting myself, answer all the questions, make the layout for the patterns and publish it myself. So I do everything, and I'm pretty sure that those like real professional knitwear designers don't do all this, but they have other people doing parts of their job. So at the moment I still knit all my samples. I hope that next year there's gonna be a change in that and I can afford to hire some sample knitters for myself. And today I'm gonna be talking about how to calculate how much yarn you need for a design. So If you're just knitting patterns and publishing them yourself, like I did earlier, then it's quite easy to know how much yarn you need because you knit the sample yourself. But if you have a sweater, you often have more than one size. And I talked about that in the third episode of the Sweater Chronicles. It was about grading, which means like making the pattern in different sizes. So I usually make from size XS to double XL, which means 6 different sizes. And of course, I won't be knitting all those 6 sizes. That would take me ages to knit all the samples and to know how much yarn I need. So I had to find a way to calculate how much yarn I need for different sizes. And this is probably the thing that took me the longest time to figure out how to do it. And I'm kind of hoping that there's someone of you that knows a easier way to do it, because the way I do it, it's quite it takes quite a lot of time, and it isn't probably the easiest way to do it, but I haven't figured out an easier way to do it. So if anyone of you knows a better way or an easier way, then please let me know. Here's Luna again. She's always photobombing my podcast videos. I think she knows that when I start filming that I'm gonna be sitting in one place for a longer period of time, so she's taking full advantage of me sitting here and always sitting on my lap. So usually when I film, Luna is here and I'm petting her at the moment, so don't get confused if there's like a tail lifting here. Like at the bottom of the video, it's just my cat here filming with me. But what was I talking about now? I really kind of lost my train of thought. Yeah, so if you're working for a publication and you have made your submission and they have accepted your submission, so usually the next thing they ask is how much yarn are you going to need to make this sample happen, and how do you know how much yarn you need before you actually knit it? So you have to calculate it somehow. And if you have watched the previous episodes, you have probably already noticed that knitwear design lies quite heavily on mathematics, and you shouldn't be afraid of it. It becomes more routine when you do it more, but for me it was like a real game changer when I realized that I only have to knit a little swatch and rest of it is just pure maths. So after knitting a swatch, like I showed you in the episode 2, which was about swatching, so I made these little swatches for my sweater designs, and after you have made the swatch, you know the gauge for the knitting, and after that you can calculate how much yarn you need for your design. So if you need to calculate the yardage before you have knitted the sample, then I recommend making a really large swatch. This is too small. Probably these two together would work, but alone just one of these is, I think it's too small. The larger your swatch is, it's better because you get a more accurate reading. So I usually put this on a scale and weight them, and then I use the weight to know how much yarn I need. So for these samples, I know how many stitches there are in each sample, and I usually calculate the yardage so that I have a known measurement of weight per stitches, or other way stitches and divided by the weight. So I get how many stitches there are per 1 gram of yarn, and from that I can start calculating I think about the sweater as an area, so it's like geometrics. I calculate surface areas, not in like square meters or square centimeters, but in terms of stitches. So I know the row count, I know how many stitches I have per row and how many rows I have, and that way I can calculate how many stitches there are for a piece of knitting. And I know that for all the sizes because I know the stitch counts for, after grading, I know all the stitch counts for each size, and from that I can start calculating how much yarn I need for the designs. Of course, if I have finished the sample, here's the Onnen sweater sample, and here is the Gotham sweater sample. So of course, the more weight I have, the more accurate the reading, because especially those like home kitchen scales, they don't really make accurate measurements. So for example, if I weigh this one and I have like an error of 1 gram, the error margin for this one, because it's smaller, it's so much larger than for a larger piece. So that's why either make a really big swatch or then use the finished sample. You can use like just one sleeve or a piece, you don't have to like knit the whole sweater, but use a large swatch or other large piece of knitting, so you know how many stitches you have per 1 gram of yarn, and from that I start calculating. So in this video I'm gonna be showing you how I do it, and although I usually work with Excel and with computer, this is a part I rather do by hand, and so I'm gonna film a little sequence here showing you how I do this next step. So the first thing is I'm gonna measure how much my sample or my swatch weighs. I need that information for later. My swatch is 9 or 10 grams. As you can see, you can't really, it's so small that the reading isn't that accurate. So that's why if I have the whole sample, I will rather use that than the swatch, and that's why I said that you should make a bigger swatch than this one. So I'm using this bowl to help me measure the weight of this whole sample. So it's 629 grams. I knew that I used a bit over 6 skeins. So I will write that down for me. I like doing this with paper and pen. So 629 grams for the sample. And then I usually start by writing all the sizes: XS, S, medium, large, extra large, and double XL. And this is almost like geometrics, so we are calculating surface areas, but not in centimeters or like square meters or so on, but we are calculating this as stitches and rows. So just like roughly drawing, we have the front and back, so there will be two of these pieces. Then we have the sleeves, which are shaped like this, and we also have two of them. sleeves. And lastly, we have the collar. And there will be just one of them. And using my spreadsheet, I will start picking numbers. So I'm writing here how many stitches to cast on. So there will be 95, 105, 115, 125, 7 and 145 stitches. So that is the measurement across this back and front, and then the total length of the body. So actually the shape of the back and front isn't really a square, but to make things simpler I usually draw them as squares. The shape should be something like this, but these areas over here are so small that I'm drawing it roughly as this one. And the total length is so 40 centimeters for the until armholes. That is the same for each size over here, and then plus the armhole depth, so that is 15.5. I'm picking these numbers from my spreadsheet, so I'm not just making them up. 17.5, 19.5, and 22. And then we still have the neck drop or the shoulder drop, which is 4 centimeters for each size. And our gauge was 28 rows per 10 centimeters, so that means it's 2.8 rows per centimeter. So what this becomes is that we calculate all these together to get kind of like the area of the front and back. So 95 stitches times 2.8 times the total length. So let's start counting, and that's how we get how many stitches we have. And I have my calculator here. So 40 plus 15.5 plus 4 equals 59.5. That times 95 times 2.8. And it's 15,827 stitches. Again, so the same for size S is 14 plus 15.5 plus 4. It's 59.5. It's the same for both of these. Times 105 times 2.8. Sorry, 2.8. And it's 17,400 193. So there are 105 stitches, and this 59.5 times 2.8 amount of rows, and on each row there are 105 stitches, so that means that there are total 17,493 stitches for the back and for the front, like roughly. Same again, 40 plus 16.5 plus 4 equals 60.5 times 115 times 2.8 is 19,481. So here we have the final stitch counts for each front and back. For the sleeves, if you remember from high school geometrics, if you have I'm not sure what this is called in English, but a rectangle that has one side shorter than the other one, the way you calculate the area of this is A and this is B, and this is the height of the whole thing. So you calculate that as A plus B, so this plus this divided by 2 times the height of the whole piece. So it's pretty much the same for this one. So this is kind of like the A and this is the B, and then you have the total length of the sleeve. But since you will have 2 sleeves, I usually don't use this one, but like kind of eliminating this one over here. So it's just A plus B times the height of the piece. So over here, for the sleeve, I'm casting on 41 stitches for the smallest size, 43, 45, 45, 47, and 47. And I'm ending, after all the increases, I'm ending with 60 stitches, and 62, 66, 70, 76 to 84. So that's like my A plus B. And the height of the sleeve is 46 for all the sizes. So 46 centimeters, and again 2.8. 2.8, and let's calculate the totals again. So 41 plus 60 equals 101 times 46 times 2.8 is 13,009 stitches. 43 plus 62, 105 times 46 times 2.8, 13,524. And I'll just quickly calculate the rest. So here are the totals for the front and the back, and here are the totals for both sleeves. So this is the total for 2 sleeves. This is for one front and one back, and this is for both. So one sleeve is half of this number, but we eliminated the half of sleeve over here by eliminating this divide by 2. And then we still have the collar left. So there are 72 and the length of the collar is 15 for all, and again 2.8 2.8 2.8. And in the same way, totals. So 72 times 15 times 2.8 equals 3024. It's the same over here. 78 times 15 times 2.8, 3276. And the last one is 88 times 15 times 2.8, 3696. I'll start by calculating the size L because it's the size that I have made the sample in. So I have 21,525 stitches for the front and back, and we have 2 of them, plus sleeves 14, 2, plus the collar over here 3276. So this is the total number of stitches. And now we know that this is the number of stitches, and we had the weight of the pullover over here. So we know that if I divide this by 629 grams, I will end up with 97.199 stitches per 1 gram of yarn. And I'll calculate the size M. So I have 19,481 stitches for front and back, so times 2, plus 14,297 stitches for the sleeves and 3,024 stitches for the collar. So the whole number of stitches is 56,283. And if I now divide this by 97.199, this one, I will end up with 579, and this is grams at the moment. And as I have 100 gram skeins, this means it's 5.79 skeins. But I usually use a buffer of 10%, so I just multiply this by 1.1, and I will end up with 636.95 grams. So that is 6.4 skeins. So I will write 6 skeins for this. And as I have for the yarn, I have 180 meters per 100 grams, which means it's 1.8 meters per 1 gram. So if I have 634 or 6.4, 636 grams, then this one. I'll just multiply this by 1.8, and here are my total. And I usually round it up to nearest 5 or 10. So this is how many meters I will need. I'll calculate size S, for example, over here, and then just do the rest of the sizes in similar fashion. So size S is 17493 times 2, so front and back. That's 34,986. And then just add the sleeve for here and the collar. So the total is 51534. This is the total stitch count. And again, here we had how many stitches per 1 gram. So I'm dividing this by 97.199, and I'm ending with 5 grams, and the buffer of plus 10%, and I'm ending with 583 grams, and that is not 6 skeins. Here, of course, it should be 7 skeins because it's over 600 grams, but less than 700 grams, so it's 7 skeins, not 6 skeins. I don't know what I was thinking. So this is 6 skeins. And then we had 1.8 meters per gram, so I'm just multiplying this with 1.8 and ending with 49.7, so it is 50 meters. Here we have our totals, and you can calculate all these in the same fashion. So this is how I calculate the amount of yarn you need for a sweater design. Like I said, I start with the swatch. Like I told in the swatching episode, you should do the swatching very carefully because it's the foundation for everything else that comes later. So in case you haven't watched the swatch episode, I really recommend that you watch it as well, because like I say in that episode, everything else relies really heavily on your swatch. So it's fundamental that you do the swatching carefully. And after that, you know your gauge, and you know how much yarn you used for that swatch, and from that you can calculate how many stitches you need per 1 gram of yarn, or how many stitches you can knit with 1 gram of yarn, more like that. And after that you can start calculating how many stitches you have per your design, different sizes, and how many grams of yarn you need to make that amount of stitches. And like I said, I usually use a 10% buffer on top of that. So there will be people who have a looser knitting style, and especially if you are substituting the yarn for something else, you probably might use a different amount of yarn. And sometimes, even though you say that you should knit the body that is 40 centimeters, then somebody has 41 centimeters or 42 centimeters and so on. So I want to have a little buffer to cover that difference in handwriting and difference in taking measurements. So yeah, so I usually multiply the yardage by 1.1 to get that like 10% extra, because it's better to be safe than sorry, like they usually say. The next episode I'm gonna be making is kind of the final episode, so I'm gonna show you how to publish your patterns on Ravelry. And let's see if I'll make one more. I've been thinking about making one more like this, kind of a bit different episode where I've been thinking about talking just like general thoughts on knitwear designs and taking part of submissions and self-care, because sometimes the deadlines can be really hectic, and you have to like think, is it really possible for you to knit that sample in that set period of time and ship it across the world. So let me know if you're interested in hearing me speak about that, and I might be making one more episode to this little mini series. I hope you have enjoyed watching this episode and the whole mini series of Sweater Chronicles. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I will try my best to answer all your questions. And especially concerning this episode and calculating the yardage, if you know an easier and faster way to do this, I would really be interested in hearing how you calculate yardage. But this is the way I do it, and I haven't found an easier way to do it just yet. So let me know all your thoughts. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you guys. But until the next episode, this is all I have for today. So bye, see you again.